It was the summer of 2012. I was 17 at the time, and like most kids my age in northern New Mexico, I spent my summers looking for something to do or get into trouble. That night, me and my best friend Sean decided to hit the Connie Mack World Series in Farmington. This was a big summer event where semi-pro youth baseball players from all over the country come to compete. We didn't go for the baseball though. We went for the scene, the energy, and yeah, the chance of meeting some girls. It was a good night. Nothing unusual. Until the drive home the old highway, on the way back home, I decided to take a detour through old Crouch Mesa Highway, a desolate, high desert stretch that winds through wide basins and low hills. You can see the faint outline of the La Plata and San Juan mountain ranges off in the distance to the north, but out there at night, it's pitch black. Just your headlights, the moon, and the sound of the radio. My mom used to work out there for an oil field company that reclaimed contaminated soil, so I'd been down that road hundreds of times, day and night. But no matter how many times I drove it, I always got that uneasy, heavy feeling in my gut. We turned off the highway after some time to the east, and eventually we came up on the four-way stop. Half of it somewhat paved, and the other road that intersected was nothing but dirt roads for miles, the kind of intersection where you never see another car. Normally, I'd run right through it, but I'd been pulled over a few months earlier for doing exactly that, and I wasn't about to risk my mom finding out again, so I eased the car to a full stop. Sean sat in the passenger seat, quiet for once. He had this habit of yelling, "Watch out," or "Stop," whenever I was driving, just to mess with me, almost causing car crashes. After years of his pranks, I'd learned to ignore him. But that night, as I stopped at the intersection, he shouted, "Hey, what's that?" I rolled my eyes and turned to tell him to shut up. But when I looked back toward the road there, it was the figure. There, about 20 or 30 yards ahead, something massive crossed the road. It moved from left to right slowly, deliberate, and like a phantom. For a few seconds, I froze. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. It was humanoid, but too tall, too broad. The shoulders looked like they belonged to a linebacker for the Denver Broncos. Under the moonlight, it moved with purpose. Sean started yelling, "Go, go!" I slammed my foot down on the gas, my heart pounding out of my chest. A few moments later, he yelled again, "Stop, idle it, slow down." I slammed on the brakes, both of us looking into the darkness, just the illumination from the car headlights and moon. We rolled the windows down, the air cold and silent. Then we saw it again. The thing off to the right, maybe 30 to 40 yards away, the same hulking figure. It was facing away, half lit by the moon, just walking into the void of darkness. The best way I could describe it? Maybe imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger, but taller, maybe 7 feet, huge shoulders, long arms, thick legs. I never saw its face, and I thank God I didn't that night. I'd been down that road my whole life, but I'd never seen anything like that. When I finally dropped Sean off at his house, I begged him to stay the night at my place. My mom was out of town with her boyfriend, and I didn't want to be alone. His mom said no. She wasn't in the mood to let him go anywhere that night after he had already left. So I drove home, locked every door, and lay awake all night staring out the window, dreading if what I saw was real. I tried to comprehend what I saw. I know that area had farmland and had farmers. Was it a horse? I was so terrified I actually called my mom, begging her to come home because I'd just seen Bigfoot. That was the first time I truly believed in something out there, something not human, and it wouldn't be the last. Since that night, I've had 2 more encounters, one a couple of years later in northeastern New Mexico, at a party on one of my friend's hundreds of acres of farmland. Again, me, Sean, and 4 others all saw the same thing, and later heard little girls laughing in the darkness. And another in the mountains of Washington while I was in the Air Force attending Survival, Evasion Resistance, and Escape SERE training. Each time the feeling was the same, the sense of being watched by something powerful, and not meant to be seen. But that night, back in 2012, on the empty stretch of Crouch Mesa, that's where it all started. Look, I'm not some city kid who gets spooked by a snapping twig. I'm a wilderness survival guide. My life is literally built around surviving the things most people are afraid of. My friend Emma? Same deal. She's been camping since she could walk. Between the two of us, we've stared down grizzly bears, tracked cougars, and handled everything from gray wolves to massive bull elk. We've even stumbled onto some weird occult rituals deep in the brush, the kind of stuff with candles and animal skulls that would make most people quit the woods for good. Point is, we don't scare. We're rational, experienced, and we know exactly what the forest is supposed to sound like. But about 3 years ago, on the southwestern slopes of Mount Hood, Oregon, the forest stopped making sense. It didn't just feel creepy, it felt like the laws of physics were being rewritten in real time. It was a cold September night. We were heading up a Forest Service road to find a high-elevation clearing for Agatha's new telescope. We wanted that crisp, thin air where the light pollution from Portland couldn't reach us. About 60 feet off the road, my headlamp caught something. It wasn't a tent this time. It was a monolith-like structure, about 7 feet tall, made of what looked like rusted iron or dark obsidian. It was just standing there in the middle of a small clearing. No tracks leading to it, no construction marks. Just this heavy, silent slab of black. I told Emma to slow down. I had this nagging feeling that it was vibrating. As we crawled past at 5 miles per hour, I caught a glimpse of its surface. It looked wrong. It wasn't solid. It looked like the texture of the object was liquefying and resolidifying every time our light hit it. It was like looking at a shadow that had been forced into a physical shape. We decided to keep going up, figuring we'd check it on the way back down. But the higher we drove, the weirder the road got. It narrowed into this sharp, impossible incline. Suddenly, Emma slammed on the brakes. She didn't say a word for 10 seconds. Then, "I'm turning around. We shouldn't be here. The road, it's repeating itself." We headed back down toward where we saw the black structure. This time, as we got closer, Emma shined the high-intensity beam directly onto the site. The structure wasn't 60 feet back anymore. It was closer, much closer, maybe 10 feet from the edge of the road. I looked at it, and my stomach did a slow flip. Have you ever seen a Picasso painting? Where an eye is where a mouth should be. The clearing around the structure was a glitch. The trees behind it looked stretched, like a bad Photoshop job. The structure itself had changed shape. It was no longer a slab. It was a cluster of floating, jagged shards that hung in the air, perfectly still, defying gravity. I blinked, thinking the cold air was making my eyes water. Dude, look at the ground underneath it. In the dirt beneath those floating shards, there were 2 bare human feet standing perfectly flat on the ground. Just the feet. No legs, no body. Just 2 pale, frozen feet, as if someone had been erased from the ankles up. I blinked again. 1 millisecond. The feet were gone. The shards had reassembled into that solid black slab. My brain started screaming. It felt like a massive headache was thumping behind my eyes. It was like my brain was trying to fix what I was seeing, but the data was corrupted. We didn't wait to investigate. We drove another 5 minutes to our original stargazing spot, a large gravel clearing. We were rattled, sure, but we're pros. We tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a weird art installation, we told ourselves. We got out to set up. But Emma started walking toward the edge of the clearing when she suddenly slammed face first into the dirt. This woman has hiked thousands of miles on treacherous trails. She doesn't just trip. A minute later, it happened to me. I felt like I was walking on solid ground. Then my foot just fell through. It wasn't just rocks. It felt like gravity was lagging, like the ground wasn't where it appeared to be. We kept stumbling over nothing, our bodies lurching as if the earth was shifting 2 inches to the left every time we took a step. It felt like walking on the deck of a ship in a storm, but the ground was perfectly flat. Emma finally got her telescope up. She aimed for Jupiter. She'd get it in the sights, stand up, and by the time she looked back down, 3 seconds later, Jupiter was gone. Not moved across the sky, but literally gone from the lens. I laid down on our tarp, and that's when I felt the heat. The air was 36 degrees, but the ground? The ground was 70 degrees. It was like laying on a heated blanket. I stood up, and the air hit me like a wall of ice. 10 inches off the ground, the temperature changed by almost 30 degrees. I looked up at the stars, and my heart stopped. The sky was split perfectly in two. A razor-sharp line ran from east to west, cutting the universe in half. The north side was hazy, bright, like a city was glowing underneath it. The south side was deep, ink black. And the stars? On the north side, they were twinkling like crazy. On the south side, they were static. Then, right before my eyes, the sky flipped. The north went black. The south went bright. It was like someone had flipped a light switch on the entire atmosphere. No clouds, no wind, just a glitch in the sky. I was slipping into this weird, heavy state of mind. Not sleep, but a kind of trance, when my survival instinct screamed at me to wake up. I sat bolt upright. Emma was out cold. But there were no orbs this time. Instead, there was a silence so loud it was deafening. Then, the tree line began to fold. That's the only way I can describe it. The trees southwest of us started to tuck into themselves, shrinking away like a piece of paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. As the trees disappeared into the fold, a low-frequency hum started. It wasn't a sound you hear with your ears. You felt it in your bone marrow. The void was moving toward us. It wasn't a shadow. It was a total lack of existence. Where the trees were being swallowed, there was nothing. No stars, no darkness, just a hole in reality. I didn't feel scared. I felt dread. It's the feeling a mouse has when it sees the shadow of a hawk. It's the realization that you are no longer at the top of the food chain. You are just data being deleted. I shook Emma. She took one look at the collapsing tree line and bolted. We didn't even put the telescope in its case. We grabbed the corners of the tarp, threw it all into the bed of the truck, and she floored it. We didn't talk the whole way down. My hands were numb. My breathing was erratic. It was a full-blown physiological flight response. As we sped past the spot where the black structure had been, I looked out the window. The clearing was gone. The road was straight. The structure was nowhere to be seen. We didn't feel safe until we hit Highway 26 and saw the headlights of a regular old semi-truck. We stopped at a 24-hour diner, our hands shaking so hard we couldn't hold our coffee mugs. I've spent 3 years trying to find a rational explanation. Atmospheric pressure? Thermal inversions? Light domes? Nothing fits. The liquefying structure, the gravity glitches, the split sky, and that folding tree line. It all points to one thing. That night on Mount Hood, we didn't just go for a hike. We stepped into a place where the fabric of our world had worn thin. And whatever was folding the world that night, it was definitely looking for us.